Hello again to all subscribers and listeners of this channel. So, a little more than a month ago, I watched a debate, if you can call it that, between the alt-right figurehead slash social activist slash podcaster Richard Spencer and the author slash podcaster slash film director slash so-called game advisor Tariq Nasheed. I have been one of Tariq's many followers for years, but have fallen out of favor with his work a few years ago when I started seeing how his feminine and dishonest dating tactics were and how they were used. Richard Spencer I don't follow as much, but I'm aware of who he is and his ideology, his thought process, and his movement. Needless to say, I was slightly anticipating this discussion between these two only because I did catch a few of their shows prior to this and was intrigued about what they would both do during this discussion. Unfortunately, I was severely disappointed. Here's why. The debate was not a debate. It was Richard Spencer making attempts to speak his views, while Tariq Nasheed jumped all over him, interrupted, and basically sounded like a hormonal schoolgirl, losing an argument. Here's my views on how to debate and how not to debate. So let's go. In order to debate, you must be able to take your opponent's statement and, seeing an argument play in your head before the argument ever starts, see not just your side but both sides and what they'll say, what they'll do, and how they'll do it. This is one of the major things I noticed. So let's go through a short list of different things going on when it comes to debating the right way and debating the wrong way. 1. How you're supposed to actually argue your point. When it comes to arguments, the two sides disagreeing with each other are supposed to follow certain protocols. Here are some protocols in my opinion. 1A. One side presents an argument. They then present facts, evidence, statistics, mathematics, science, interesting observations, etc. to back up whatever argument that they're making. 1B. The other side simply challenges that argument that's being presented. They don't necessarily have to make a counter assertion, although that can help. They just need to challenge the assertions made by their opponent. They can do this by pointing out inconsistencies in the other person's argument, asking good questions, foreseeing major flaws in someone's argument before they make the argument. Then when the argument is made by their opponent, they already know where and how to counter. Show that some of their facts are faulty or incorrect. Show that some of their conclusions are premature or not correct at all. 1C. People must learn the difference between a positive and negative reality. The court of law and the application of the court of law idea to any situation where they may have to disprove someone's claim would be a smart choice to make. You can assert a negative reality. You cannot assert a negative reality. You can only assert a positive reality, or challenge someone else's assertion of a positive reality. Or another way to put it, you can't prove innocence. You can only prove guilt or accept innocence. Basically, it's another way of saying the innocent until proven guilty idea, which is the most sensible way of going about when it comes to a criminal case. Examples. I cannot say that a man is definitely innocent. I can't accept that he's innocent until you or someone else proves his guilt by showing evidence that he did indeed commit the crime. Then and only then can we both accept that he is guilty after you showed and proved his guilt beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt. Or another example. I can't say that evolution is not a fact. I can't say that it's not proven scientifically to be a fact unless you, who thinks it is a fact, prove that it's a fact with evidence, with things that you can show me. Until you prove that, neither of us can accept evolution as a fact. So the burden of proof for evolution falls upon those who are convinced that evolution is indeed a real phenomenon. I accept that, or here's another example. I accept that you might not exist based off of lack of evidence. Or I can prove that you do exist because I found a multitude of evidence that ultimately proves your existence. It's one or the other. And I must say, this isn't the only time. There's actually a couple other quote-unquote debates that Tariq has had. He utterly fails every time he asserts that a person is a white supremacist or a suspected white supremacist. He makes these assertions, but then he never actually proves these assertions with any evidence. He just kind of calls them out and doesn't realize how silly he looks when he sometimes or almost every time calls someone that, but can never prove it, but somehow just wants people to blindly believe him. It's very bizarre. Especially considering he's an author. But whatever. Last one. 1D. As was stated earlier, presenting a counter explanation is something that can help a lot. When one argues that someone is wrong, a major thing they can do is propose another solution or another explanation for the phenomenon that they're both arguing. When this is done, they can simply present their alternative idea with facts, evidence, artifacts, observations, etc. that support their counterclaim much better than their opponent's original argument or original claim. But again, this is extra work that is not necessarily needed to win a debate. Number 2. The many annoying things that people do when they're actually losing a debate. There are many things that people do when they're losing a debate and when you know that they can't really argue their case very well, if at all. Tariq Nasheed was guilty of a few of these in his barely 20-minute discussion with Richard Spencer. So here's a short list of some more common things that people like Tariq do when they can't really hold themselves together with someone more intellectually mature than them. And these are things that we all should avoid doing when having a debate with anyone about anything in life. 2A. Ask questions of your opponent but never answer their questions. Tactics like this are cheap and dishonest. And why are they cheap and dishonest? They throw off the opponent, they confuse them, they give up the essence of having the intellectual high ground and having all the answers. It also gives the audience a false sense that someone like Tariq knows more about what he's talking about when he really doesn't. So again, you ask questions but don't answer them. It throws the other person off, and then they look like they don't know what they're talking about, whereas you look like you do know what you're talking about, when in reality, you're just confusing them by being dishonest and unfair with the questioning. 2B. Ask questions in rapid succession. And this is something I notice a lot with SJWs in that type. A lot of people who claim they're for social justice, they do this a lot. Asking the question after question after question in rapid succession is not debating people. It's berating people. It's a way to establish some type of dominance in the discussion with aggression. Instead of, you don't necessarily need to be dominant, but you need to be correct in what you're proposing when you argue. They're not being correct. They're just trying to dominate with more and more words. Use cleverness, use clear thinking skills, use good argumentation. That wins arguments. That wins debates. That can sway people's thinking. Just constantly talking over and over and over, just asking questions. It sounds like you're just being hostile, aggressive, and rhetorical. And again, that's not debating. That's basically throwing a verbal temper tantrum. 2C. They start laughing, or making snide comments, or being passive-aggressive, or condescending. These are all traits of someone so emotionally stunted that they resort to basically bully tactics. But not just bully tactics, feminine bully tactics. This is the type of thing you would expect from a preteen spat, not a discussion between two grown men who both have decent-sized followings online. And again, it's almost entirely Tariq that did this. So he's the one that pretty much is responsible for making this 20-minute long debate pretty mediocre. 2D. Last but not least, but very common. Interrupting way too much. Interruptions are a sign of a person having an overly emotional worldview, a worldview that cannot be challenged. So they rather interrupt a challenge to their worldview rather than listen and then refute that challenge after the other side has stopped speaking. Interrupting the other person is basically saying, I can't hear you at all. I will not listen. You can't infiltrate my comfort zone with your alternative view. If you do, I'll do the primitive thing, and that is drown you out with constant noise, interruptions, or repeating questions and being rhetorical. And I'll do this to make sure that my worldview and how I look at reality is safe and protected and intact. Again, this is very emotionally immature and very intellectually stunted. This is not how you're supposed to debate at all. Number 3. What is the ultimate point of debate? What do we gain from debating our ideas with other people? The point of debate in some people's minds is simply to be better at presenting arguments. You simply win by outdoing your opponent and convincing them or an audience that you're right and your opponent is wrong. But I don't really agree with this. I am fairly certain that the real powerful, important, and valuable thing about debates is that two opposing sides actually get closer and closer to what's correct and what is accurate by testing their ideas and the foundations of their ideas. And one of the best ways to test these things is to present them to someone who disagrees. When this is done correctly, what should happen is that ideas you were correct about should be reinforced through someone else challenging your ideas. While other things you were wrong about, you re-examine them, accept that they were incorrect, and then shift to a more accurate and more correct ideas instead. This works only if you are intelligent enough and honest enough with yourself about how you see the world and how you see reality. When done correctly, both of you should become more enlightened about the topic that you are discussing. Through the verbal warfare, through this linguistic jousting match, through this well-done battle of ideas and oratory skills, do you both learn and hopefully grow in your knowledge of the world around you? What do we gain from debate? I believe we who support good debates and good discussions gain two important things. A, we gain the skill to make our claims and defend them, something that actually doesn't happen very often amongst human beings. We don't really get to make our claims public, and we don't get enough chance to defend them or prove that they're right or wrong. Or have someone else prove that they're wrong, I should say. Why? Because most of us, and I'll say unfortunately, spend our entire lives in comfort zones where everyone agrees. Everyone sees everything the same way. Nothing is challenged. And nobody seems to realize that this eventually weakens us. Debates, good debates, can strengthen us as human beings. And B, the other good thing that it does, or the other good thing that we gain from it, we hopefully gain a more nuanced yet more accurate knowledge of reality that surrounds us. Something human beings desperately need now more than ever. And that thing that we need is a greater connection with objective reality. In conclusion, I feel that debates, if done correctly, are a good thing. They strengthen us and give us a much greater mosaic of objective reality. So many different facets, yet more accuracy and precision when it comes to accepting facts. And that's what you usually come to when you get a good debate, a good discussion, good disagreements that are backed up with facts and evidence, etc. But in order to gain from debate, in order to learn from it, in order to gain something value from it, we must debate correctly. Again, things that we should not do. Don't interrupt. Don't overtalk. Don't repeat questions. Treat your opponent the way you would want to be treated. Don't ask questions, then refuse to answer their questions. And most definitely, don't be passive aggressive or condescending. If you do these things, as far as I'm concerned, this only exposes how weak you are. You are the weak and petty one that actually cannot back up their arguments very well. What we should be doing, what all people should be doing when we're being challenged about facts, when we're challenging somebody else's ideas, we should present facts, we should ask good questions, point out inconsistencies, show flaws in their evidence, focus more on reinforcing what you accept as fact. Focus more on reinforcing what you believe to be true, what you accept as fact based off of the evidence that you have, and deconstructing what they think is fact. And finally, present alternative ideas if you have evidence that you feel that another idea is more accurate than what your opponent is showing you when it comes to their ideas. Oh, and one more thing. Again, I don't know much about Richard Spencer. I don't follow him, so obviously I'm not defending him or anything like that, but it's only an honest observation. As far as he's concerned, Richard Spencer, the only thing that he really did wrong in this, what you could call a debate, I guess, was be as patient with Tariq Nasheed's arrogance and immaturity as he was. I don't think a lot of people would put up with that long. I imagine other people would have left the conversation much, much earlier. So I would say his only mistake is being that patient, because Tariq was all over the place doing a lot of really silly, immature stuff, in my opinion. So that's all I got to say about that. And that's all I've got to say for now. Please like, subscribe, share, and donate to support my content. Have a great day, everybody. I'm out. Peace.